How many times in your life have you said things like, I just want to be normal, or I want to live an average life, or I want to just look like the average person? And how many times has that line of thinking led you to actually achieving success? We're going to get into that in just a second. My name is Pete Weintraub. I'm a permanent weight loss specialist, and you're watching or listening to the Weight Loss by Pete podcast. You can find this on my YouTube channel, which is Pete Weintraub, Permanent Weight Loss Specialist channel, or you can download my podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. Again, it's called the Weight Loss by Pete podcast. So I've seen a lot of these memes on social media over the last week or so. Passover and Easter were happening over this past weekend. And a lot of people, obviously, during holidays, they like to make excuses. They like to fall off the wagon with their nutrition, and they blame it on being around family, the holidays. And look, I get all that. And I've been preaching a lot lately that you do not have to be perfect. A bad meal, a bad snack, a bad dessert, or even a bad diet of drinking here or there is not the end of the world, provided you get back on the horse and you do it. But you see these memes pop up during every different holiday festival throughout the year, where essentially people just play the blame game and they make jokes about it. And it's good to be lighthearted because life is worth living. It's not worth being hard on yourself and being too much of a perfectionist. That's something that I've personally struggled with over the vast majority of my life. I'm very hard on myself. I am my harshest critic, and I am a perfectionist. If I don't achieve what I set out to achieve in the length of time that I give myself to achieve it, I am extremely hard on myself, and I've put myself down. In recent years, and on my 100-pound weight loss journey, I had to learn how to deal with that, because let's face it, if you're not in this for the right reasons, if you're not forgiving of yourself when you do slip up, then the chances of you, A, getting back on the horse, and B, actually seeing through the journey is slim to none. So that was something very important mentally that I had to learn on my health and weight loss journey. Even when I figured out how to eat right, that sleep was important, and that it was important to exercise regularly, there were times, sometimes it was just a day, sometimes a week, sometimes a month, where I'd kind of fall off the wagon. But I always got back on, and I never got down on myself too hard, because I know I have to be forgiving of myself just like you do. But that being said, you should never aspire to be average. And I've shared this with you in the past, but just as a reminder, when I lost the 70 pounds that I'd gained in college, right? So for those of you who are new to my story, and there's a card above that'll explain it in more vivid detail. I struggled with weight throughout my childhood. I lost it in high school when I started playing sports. My parents got me a personal trainer. So between all that, I grew into my body. I put on some muscle. And I entered college pretty muscular. I'm 6 feet tall, and at the time, I weighed 215 pounds. Unfortunately, I had a great metabolism, and I was extremely active, obviously, in high school, and I carried over into college. And not to mention walking to a bunch of classes on a hilly campus, certainly a lot of activity throughout the day, even on days where I didn't end up going to the gym, playing a recreational sport or whatever. But the first 3 months of my sophomore year, my teenage metabolism finally left me, and I gained 70 pounds inside of 3 months at the beginning of my sophomore year of college. And it was obviously very trying, because when I went home for the Thanksgiving break at that time, I remember my friends from home and my family members who had last seen me a few months prior in shape saying, "What happened to you? You were in shape 3 months ago." And when I got back to school, it was like the glass shattered. I guess when you see people every day, people don't notice. But my friends that then also from school then noticed that I'd put on weight. And obviously it's caused a lot of confidence issues. When we'd have a little too much to drink, they would be hard on me. So at the end of that year, that's when I embarked on my 100-pound weight loss journey. It started off as a 70-pound weight loss journey. And despite losing 40 pounds, in the first 4 months of that journey by strict calorie restriction, portion control, I then plateaued for 3 years doing that. No matter how severely I restricted my calories or watched my portions, or how hard I worked out, in conjunction with that, I couldn't lose a pound. And finally, when I found out about the paleo diet, which is more of a quality over quantity perspective, that's when things started to change. But It was at this time that I was at a crossroads. I was back down to the weight and the physique that I'd entered college with just 3 or 4 years later. And I asked myself, is this all I want to be? At the time, I was not doing this full time. I was primarily working as a corporate salesperson. And I figured, you know what? I want to keep going. So a couple of things happened around this time. I got a food allergy test because I noticed I was having stomach issues. I was going to the bathroom a lot unexpectedly, and I had stomach pains, literal stomach pains, where you could just poke me in the stomach and it felt like you were stabbing me. So obviously there was a lot of intestinal inflammation going on, and I found that I had a dairy allergy. That was step one. And then step two was me deciding mentally that I can do better. Yeah, I look pretty good right now. I'm pretty muscular and pretty lean. There's no issue with how I look, but I want to go down a little more. I want to look like the people at the time I subscribed to, like Men's Health and Muscle and Fitness and all those fitness magazines. And I wanted to look like the guys on the covers. And I understand a lot of them are photoshopped, and that's a big issue with identity. But you know what? I wanted to look like that, like in real life, though. I didn't want to be photoshopped. I didn't want to go extreme, but there was still a ways to go. I wanted to get abs. I wanted to get trim. And so I discovered the ketogenic diet at around this time, and I decided to give it a whirl. And in conjunction with wearing off dairy, I lost another 30 pounds, giving me my total weight loss of 100 pounds. And obviously, not everyone aspires to look like a fitness model. A lot of people are like, you know what? If I had half a dad bod compared to the full-on dad bod I have, and maybe a little more on top of that, I'm good. You may have mediocre dreams like that, but you know what? You got to shoot for the stars. You can't ever fully be satisfied. You can be happy with who you are and where you're at, especially if you do reach your preliminary health and weight loss goals, but there's always somewhere to go. And just to give you a few statistics that should help sway you in this direction of why being average is not a good idea, why you don't want to be like everyone else. 2/3 of the United States population is either overweight or obese. Over 1/3 of those people are obese. That's a big, big problem. That's tens of millions of people who are obese. That's hundreds of millions of people who are overweight. That's not good. So you don't want to be like everyone else, because just about everyone else is not in a good spot. When you're overweight or obese, and we've gone over this before, it's often due to the fact that you're ingesting a diet high in copious amounts of grains, processed foods, and added sugar. When you ingest a diet high in these three negative areas, you're stimulating constantly a process called the insulin resistance cycle. Basically, what you're doing is you're throwing your hormone levels out of whack, mainly your insulin levels. Your insulin is secreted by your pancreas in order to regulate your blood sugar levels. When insulin is secreted constantly and in high quantities, because your blood sugar is spiking through the roof and it brings it back down constantly, over time, you can become insulin resistant, which is a fancier way of saying you become pre or type 2 diabetic. Being type 2 diabetic, while deadly in and of itself potentially, is a gateway disease. So is obesity. And the way you get obese too is that by constantly going through this insulin resistance cycle, not only can you become insulin resistant, but you continue to store and acquire fat. Fat is nothing more than excess stored energy. When your body can't possibly distribute that giant jack in blood sugar because of the copious amount of refined, processed, sugary carbohydrate that you're ingesting, then it stores it as fat to be used at a later time in case you ever enter a period where food is scarce and you're going through famine or starvation. That's all that is. So in order to overcome that, you have to put your body in the best possible position to succeed. It's hard to do when your hormone levels are out of whack because you're insulin resistant. So those two things go hand in hand, and obesity, like insulin resistance, is a gateway disease to many of the top causes of death in this country: heart disease, various forms of cancer, neurological conditions like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia, all linked to obesity and or type 2 diabetes. So obviously, a lot of people suffer from both of those things in this country. You don't want to be average in that respect. You want to be above average. Everyone hopefully, wants to live a long, healthy, happy life. It's very difficult to do when your day-to-day functionality is diminished, when you can't even bend over to tie your shoes, when you can't play and keep up with your kids, and when you can't play a sport that you love recreationally even because you're too out of shape and inflexible and immobile to do so. You don't want to be average like a lot of people in this country. And like I touched on yesterday, there are studies and there are articles that are pushing their way through the mainstream that are very contrary to what we've been taught in school over the past 60 plus years. And I hope more of these studies and more of these articles come to the public light so we can begin to address the issues with the obesity epidemic and with a lot of the chronic conditions that are killing people and that people are suffering from in this country every single day, because most, if not all of those things, are completely preventable, if not reversible, if you're already suffering from them. Type 2 diabetes is reversible. Obesity is reversible. Some forms of cancers are reversible. These are things that you can do if you're able to adopt a healthy lifestyle, but it starts with you, and it starts with you not giving in to the status quo. A lot of people too, and this is something that really pisses me off. I've been in this business for 10 years, or this industry, let's say. It's not just a business. It's an industry, the health industry, for 10 years. I've worked with lots of different people as young as their late teens, all the way up into their 80s. And a lot of people in their 40s and their 50s and in their 60s, they attribute their issues with mobility, with functionality, with the chronic disease or diseases that they're suffering from to age. Just because you're getting older doesn't give you an excuse to become more immobile and to get sicker. Yes, typically you lose muscle mass year to year after you hit the age of 40 and you move on. Yes, that is valid if you don't take care of yourself, if you don't incorporate resistance training into your exercise routine at least a couple of days a week. There are ways around it. If you don't eat a diet high in iron, if you're iron deficient, that's going to become an issue. There's so many things that you can be proactive about today, regardless of your age, your gender, your ethnicity, whatever. It doesn't matter what your genetics, especially. There's also a study called epigenetics, where even if you are genetically susceptible to certain chronic diseases, essentially you have to turn on those genes. Okay, and part of it can be environmental. If you're in an area high in air pollution, environmental toxins, like maybe in the drinking water, the water you bathe in or brush your teeth with, then yeah, that can definitely increase your chances of turning on said genes that can make you sick. But the amazing thing about epigenetics is that when you take control of your health and you take control of your life and you start to do right by you, you eat right a vast majority of the time, you get good, consistent quality sleep a vast majority of the time, and you exercise on a very regular basis, you're going to notice drastic improvements, not just in how you look, but in how you feel. And you're never going to want to go back. And you're going to find, as you continue to incorporate this stuff more and more and more into your daily life, the longer you go without eating right, the crappier you're going to feel. The longer you go without getting consistent quality sleep, the crappier you're going to feel. The longer you go without exercising, the crappier you're going to feel. So you're going to want to get back to those great habits that you started and go with it. It takes 66 days, according to scientific studies, to form a habit. So a little over 2 months to form a habit. I promise you, incorporate eating well. And by well, I mean clean. We've been over this many, many times. In fact, there's going to be a video above here, but also in the description below, I want to gift you with my free report. It details the 5 strategies that I personally use to lose 100 pounds and keep them off. And these are the same 5 strategies that I teach my permanent weight loss clients. These are absolutely free, and they will get you on the right path towards better health, losing weight for good. All you have to do, 5 free strategies in a free report. It doesn't get better than that. Just go to the link. It's weightlossbypete.com/5. That's the number 5 strategies. Get your free copy. It's that simple. But getting back, you don't want to be average, guys. The average person in this country is overweight, and the average person in this country has one chronic condition. That's scary. And 50% have 2 or more. That's terrifying. You don't want to be average, all right? So if you don't have any of these issues, please do whatever you can to prevent them. If you currently do, that's okay. much of it can be alleviated, if not completely reversed, if you just make some changes. But you have to be willing to make the changes. You can't accept, oh, this is happening to me because this is what happened to my parents or my siblings or my friends, my family. Everyone who's my age is getting sick and fat. That's not okay. That's not the way humans are meant to be. Do not accept the status quo. Be your best self. Do not compare yourself either. Teddy Roosevelt, one of the former United States presidents in the early 20th century, had a great saying, and he said, comparison is the thief of all joy. You see everyone on social media comparing themselves to their friends and family. It's stupid and makes you depressed. There are studies that prove that it makes you depressed by comparing yourself constantly, by having this newsfeed constantly showing you pictures and status updates and things like that, people just talking about their lives, often bragging. And it's a form of narcissism. That in and of itself is a completely different condition. In fact, I think the excuse me, I think the APA, the American Psychiatric Association, just added this type, I forget what it's called, something about social media narcissistic disorder, something like that. And it's a real thing, and it's affecting a lot of different people. Do not compare yourself to other people, all right? You are you. Be your best you, all right? Be present for the people in your lives, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your kids, whether it's your parents, your immediate family, your extended family, your friends, your coworkers, your employees. If you own a business, be there for the people in your life. And most importantly, take care of yourself, because if you don't take care of yourself, someone else is going to have to do that for you. I don't think you want to be, or you want to get to the point where you can't even take care of yourself because of personal neglect. So I hope you enjoyed this. So guys, if you like this video, if you like listening to this podcast, do me a favor, please subscribe to the channel and leave a review. I'd love to hear from you, whether it's good or bad. Whatever I can do to get better, I'm always down for it. So don't feel like you have to sugarcoat anything. Please like the channel, follow the channel, and leave a review. Secondarily, like I mentioned earlier, download my free report. Details the 5 strategies that I personally use to lose 100 pounds. They're all free. The report is free, and it's here to help you. So go there. Thanks again so much for watching, listening. This is Pete Weintraub, Permanent Weight Loss Specialist. I'm signing off for the night. Have a great night, everybody. I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, Wednesday, April 4th. Enjoy.